Hi guys, welcome to Psychic Babes. The thing I'm excited about today is a huge understatement, but it's rare that I talk about what I do on my podcast. But today I am so thrilled and humbled to have my trainer and mentor with me with DMT and Changa, Eve, on the show. She is the closest one can get to actually embodying the molecule. And I really, you probably won't understand that when you're just hearing the initial intro to this, but just stay with me in this podcast and really listen and try to understand some of the stuff that we're talking about, because the stuff that we're doing is really groundbreaking work today. So we're breaking new frontiers open, and I'm forever grateful for her existence. So welcome, beautiful goddess.
Thank you, my queen. No pressure at all.
No, not at all.
I'm glad that we're doing this.
Okay, so how did you get started working with DMT, and what was your first time like?
So I've been a psychedelic girl my whole life. That being said, I didn't know anything about it until a brother of mine just repeatedly was bringing it to me. So he and DMT together were persistent enough that I'm like, okay, I'll try it. So I did, and it was pretty mellow. And that was the beginning of about a year and a half of self-study with the molecule. Intense, as you understand, Kirsten. Some days I was smoking it about 100 times a day, just diving back into what the fuck am I and what is this reality that supports my being. And then about a year and a half in, DMT was like, by the way, this is your work, and this is what you're going to be doing, and this is how you're going to be doing it. And we've been doing it ever since. And I have a very successful referral only practice, and DMT is at the heart of it.
Yeah, and that being said, like, can you explain, because most people think about DMT and their vision of it is this breakthrough experience, where you're blasting off. That's not what we're doing at all here. So can you explain the difference between that and the work that we're doing?
Well, we're definitely blasting off too. That's definitely important. But in the psychedelic community, DMT kind of has this one and done reputation because it's so whoa. It's this bungee jump into consciousness, and you're there for about 5 minutes, and it's often more real than the reality that we walk through. So people have a tendency to check that off the box, like I've been there, done that. But really, because the brain works through repetition, and because the experience can be so disorienting, to say the least, you take back bits of it that you can digest, and then you integrate, and then you go back. So the work that we do is different, and we keep throwing you into the soup of us, of reality, and then we integrate it. And so my job and Kirsten's job is, what we're doing is we're attaching to language to what otherwise transcends language. So the left hemisphere of the brain, that's the home of language, that's pattern recognition, it craves completion, and that's where the I lives. And so what we're doing is we're communicating with the idealized self, and then allowing the you that transcends you to teach you better. So I like to call myself the flight attendant to the next level of consciousness. I'm introducing you to you that transcends time, space, judgment, past, and nobody can hold you accountable like you can hold yourself. So it's very empowering.
Absolutely. I would 100% agree. When did you start training people? I already know the answer to this, but I would like my...
Tell you. So what we're starting to see in the psychedelic space is a lot of certification programs and all of that. And no, I don't. You're the one exception. You're the one client that I've taken to train in my methodology because DMT told me so. So if I do work with practitioners and that, however, I don't at this time give them like the piece of paper that allows them to do whatever they want and then turns that I'm liable for it. You're the only one I'll take responsibility for it at this given moment in time.
And I am forever grateful for it. I'll never forget the first time that we worked together. It was one of the most intense experiences with DMT that I've ever had. And I just I knew like this was like the beginning of my love affair with DMT too. And you can testify that I was smoking a lot of it after that, a whole lot of it. Everybody in my house was a little bit concerned probably, but no, it's been the most life-changing experience that I've had with any molecule in my entire life.
And that's actually something that I do want to clarify. We are definitely the extreme side of the pendulum because that's the characters the collective created us to play. And so like we exist in this space to the point that we're fluent and very comfortable in it. That's not what we're doing with our clients.
Yeah, no.
Yeah, we're teaching them to develop a sustainable relationship with it that serves them. Some experience it more. Geez, I get nervous looking at my own reflection. Just talking to myself. Some go a little bit deeper into that sea, and some like to stay on the shallow end, and we honor that. So like the molecule is so intelligent that it calls you, and because we are in direct communication with it, we honor when to push deeper and when to allow people to be exactly where they are.
Yeah, and it also to be, an expert in something, it requires a certain amount of fluid, you have to be fluent in that language, so to speak. So
We definitely are.
yes, it was definitely. How do you view reality? Because this is going to be interesting for some people. And can you explain your concept of this thing called life and the control that we have over it?
So the most concise way to explain reality is actually a slang expression in Portuguese, and it's a noise, and it translates as "it's us." And I think that that's one of the clearest ways to explain everything, everywhere, all the time. It's us. So everything is you. If you take a look around you, whether you're in your car, or your house, or whatever, the car that you're driving, it's you. The seat that you're sitting in, it's you. The hand that you're holding, it's also you. The voice that you're hearing, it's you. So everything is you doing a really, really good job of playing the role of it. And sometimes things get a little bit too real, and we get lost in player mode, and we forget that we have the option to toggle into creator mode. And that's what we teach people. That's what third eye vision is. It's the eye of neutrality, of correspondence, of seeing very clearly that everything around you is your creation. And so we're bringing conscious awareness to our subconscious creation. And then through the throat chakra, we're now bringing conscious awareness to the spells that we're casting. Your word is your wand. So it's all vibration, but it's information in the brain. So we're really taking a look at what we're creating in our reality. It is an inward. I mean, it's the matrix, guys. Like it's all energy taking form. It's pretty simple. And then once you see it, you can't unsee it. You're like, holy shit, I'm in a matrix of my own creation. But there's not this like alien race harvesting our organs. It's us. We're doing this to ourselves. And we're the answer to our question. So the first part, when people are in a lot of pain, they're in a victim mentality, whether they would like to hear it or not. So this is why shadow work is important for people that are working in the psychedelic space, because you need to be comfortable being the bad guy and not mollycoddling. Oh my gosh, all of these things happen to me. Well, these things are you. And even the act of something happening is you playing the role of it. So like whatever sentence you want to say, replace it with me. It's us. And we overcomplicate everything so we can have the texture of existence. Time is us playing the role of it. So I like to say life is masturbation. You're stimulating yourself with yourself through color, through sound, even through temperature, through conversation. And sometimes life gets a little bit rapey. And so it's important that we give ourselves permission to choose pleasure. So why am I gangbanging myself in the world that I'm living in? But I slow down and choose Tantra, like really allowing life to be a more pleasurable feedback loop, because I think that pleasure is it's a more efficient way to learn. And I use my dogs, for example. When I was training, I have an 8-month-old puppy, and when I was training her, she learned real quick when I would give her treats. But if I was like, she would also learn to be afraid. But that's not, I tried it both ways. So for a week, I would yell at her when she would go potty in the wrong place, and she continued to go potty in the wrong place. I was like, this is not fun for either of us. And then I'm like, okay, let's actually I watched some Caesar or whatever, the dog whisperer, because I'm like, I'm being a bad parent. And then he reminded me of positive reinforcement, and then she learned almost immediately. And that was also partially me taking responsibility for my reality and realizing and being like, why am I creating resistance in training my dog? This is me. And it's all energy. So like, what we do is we teach people, I feel like I'm going around in circles, but that's fine. We teach people to take responsibility for everything, everywhere, all the time. At first, that's a pretty big pill to swallow, because you're like, shit, I can't blame anyone else. But then you're kind to yourself about why you've created problems, whether it be ancestral lineage, what are your self-sabotaging beliefs, and then that's when magic starts awakening. So the reason that our work is so efficient is because it's also a pleasure loop, and not just you're sitting on a couch and you're talking about your feelings, you're actually changing your reality. So they're like, oh my gosh, I'm getting money. Oh my gosh, my husband's behaving better. Oh my gosh, I see, like, this is in real time happening.
And so very fast.
Super fast, because we're also dissolving linear time. And that's part of the work that we do, is we stop being a slave to this line of time and didn't allow it to be this little, like, this dance that we get to do. Because a client of mine, I thought it was so brilliant. He was like, these are our time suits. Our bodies are our time machines. And I'm like, you're absolutely right. We travel through ourselves by giving ourselves bodies so we can walk along ourselves as time. Anyway, it was I think that's enough of an answer.
No, I mean, that is going to be a pretty big pill for people to swallow. And I realize that it was for me initially too, but I already sort of knew that, but I didn't really understand it until I started working with you. And then once I took responsibility for it, everything changed. And it was like, oh my gosh, I can actually control this, and holy shit, I can change it. And instead of calling that in, I could call something that's, more fun and more exciting. And so I think that's kind of the most amazing part of our work. I also wanted to note, a lot of people are like, oh, so concerned with these DMT elves and what are they? And it's so funny. All of these books are written about this, and it's like, whoa, they're kind of missing the biggest piece of this. That's all there is no.
It's so funny, the elves. Whenever I have, so a lot of the clients that come to me, and this might be the case with you as well, it's their first time experiencing psychedelics. And they'll do a little bit of research. They're like, okay, what am I getting myself into? And to say it quite simply, it's all energy taking form. What's happening in the eye is something called hyperbolic geometry, where it's a pattern that's repeating itself within itself within itself. And it's that. So all your beliefs, so the left hemisphere of the brain, that's pattern recognition, so it's craving completion. So it's this energy grid, or the ether, or chi, or prana, or the quantum vacuum, something, whatever that is. It's the infinite life source that we are a part of. That it takes form, it takes lines, and they become it's you taking the form that you need to get the information or the message that you're trying to deliver yourself. So if you want to experience that through aliens, if you want to hear it from Morgan Freeman, if you want to, whatever it is, that you as God can paint whatever picture you want. It's like that new AI app where you say it and it becomes. DMT works the same way. So it's painting you a picture of your subconscious.
Yeah, so speaking about that, I talk a little bit about like some of the methods that you use that we use in helping people conquer their fears, working with PTSD, heal illnesses. Like there's just a number of things, but what are kind of some of the techniques so that people get an idea of what we do?
So we plant the seeds through language, and then DMT solidifies them through experience. And this is how the brain learns, right? So we give birth to the neurons, and then they need something to connect to experientially. So that's where DMT comes in. It's like, let me show you what she's saying, and then it becomes really memorable. And then you do that a few times, and that's how things become wisdom. Wisdom stored in the body. That's muscle memory. That's the cerebellum. And what we do is we plant the seeds, and it tells us what we're supposed to say, and then we say it, and then it shows them what we've said.
Absolutely.
It's very interesting.
And we go in with our clients, so we are able to understand exactly how deep they're at, and we're able to kind of meet them at the same level. So,
for sure, yeah, we do DMT together. We don't do it all the time, but we do it a good chunk of time, and it's fun. Kirsten's experienced it. We can do collective ego death through Google Meet. Like that's nuts.
Among many other things.
Among many other things. Yeah, it's so that's where it really gets exciting in terms of my longer term clients. They're not staying with me because they're still in a pattern. They choose to extend the relationship because now we're getting like weird.
Now we're getting to the good stuff, and it's like, oh, but what else can I do with this? Yeah.
It's telepathy. It's DMT starting to teach me teleportation and how that's completely possible, which is allowing yourself to dissolve as energy entirely forever, which then gives you permission to reappear somewhere else. I haven't done it, but
yeah, we're working on it. I'm sure we'll get there. What has DMT kind of told you about how this world came into existence? And also, can you talk about Nassim Haramein and how he nailed down the formula for this?
So he is, I believe in this guy so much. He has a series, he's an expert on Gaia. So if any of you guys are interested in his work, I absolutely would inspire you to listen to what he has to say, because I believe that he's the future. So basically, he's a physicist, and he's bridged the gap between cosmology, which is the study of galaxies, and quantum mechanics, which is the smallest small that ever did small. And he believes in an open system, which everything is. We live in the Milky Way galaxy. Every galaxy at the center of it, it's governed by a supermassive black hole, or it could be one that's a little bit smaller. So we are in the Milky Way galaxy, and at the center of our galaxy is the supermassive black hole, Sagittarius A. Okay. So we've, wondered, are black holes wormholes? What's inside of them? All of that. And again, he can say this a lot more fluently than I can. But basically, all the information that exists within a black hole is on the outside of it. It's on the perimeter. So everything that's within is on the outside. And they are filled with enough information to create galaxies, including the one that we already live in. Okay. So they're hollow, like holographic. And so then he's like, all right, let's take this down into a subatomic level. And then he measured the proton. And we're talking like clean equations, guys. This is math. And a proton, and we're 3 to the 10th trillion atoms. Like we're a lot of atoms, and within those atoms are protons. And a proton is mathematically identical to the supermassive black hole that is at the center of our galaxy. So this is how you tap in when people talk about the Akashic records, when they talk about all of that. Yes, we are individuated slivers of God. If that's how the God, universe, whatever you would like to say, whatever verbiage makes you happy, I can dig it. But yes, we are a part of the whole experiencing itself, but also the entirety of the self is in every little sliver of our being. So we're universes ourselves. So all of the information necessary to create me, my house, you, the world around us is in every little proton of our being, and probably even smaller, because as consciousness, we can infinitely protrude inward into ourselves. So that's that.
Yeah, that's powerful though. I mean, that's like,
Powerful.
wow. So tell me about one of the most profound experiences you've had on DMT, and then I'll share my fractal experience.
Oh gosh. There's so many. Can you be, maybe you should.
One of them, or maybe talk about the one where no, okay, because I guess that one kind of goes with what I was going to say.
Why don't you tell me about
Well, DMT, I was working on my logo, and I was trying to embed my signature into the logo, and DMT turned me into a fractal, like a little bitty fractal. And I was like,
inside your logo?
yeah, inside my logo. And I was like, I disappeared. Like, what's going on? And
that was an intense one for you, right? Like you're like,
yeah,
oh, shit,
yeah, I was super freaked out for a while. I was like, oh, I don't want to do that again. But I understood, and I understood then I was my logo then. And I was like, oh, okay. And how powerful that was. So, I mean, there have been many other ones, but that was one of the most profound ones that I have yet experienced. Sometimes, DMT takes you in and it's smooth, it's a cake ride, it's no big deal, it's just easy. Then sometimes it's, well, bam, like you just get hit like a ton of bricks. And
sometimes it sucks the shit out of you. Yeah, I mean, your higher consciousness is gentle and delicious, but sometimes you need
swift kick in the ass.
And nobody more equipped to fuck you like you need, like yourself.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh my God. Guys, I've been the smallest thing that ever did small. I've been like attack of the 50-foot woman, huge. I've been absolutely stunning looking myself in the mirror. I've been the ugliest thing that ever did ugly looking at myself in the mirror.
Yeah, those are rough when that those are rough when that happens.
Right? When you're like, really? When you're just looking at your reflection, you're like, no fucking way.
You start getting older and decrepit, and you're like, oh, okay.
And gory sometimes. Sometimes it's horror movie gory.
DMT makes you do that in order to fall in love with yourself. It's like, hey, it's not just about appearance. You got to be, and it will literally show you what's on the inside, on the outside in the mirror when you're doing work with DMT. It's really powerful. It's like you can't hide from yourself at all with DMT. There's just no way, shape, or form. You can't mind hack yourself around it either. So it is one of the only things, you can't ignore it. So I know for some of my clients, this is funny. I was showing up for them as like this alien reptilian woman when they were going in. So they would get a little bit, and this is like, every clients have told me this, so they would get a little bit concerned, like, who are you? And then they'd be like, oh, I'm sorry I said that afterwards, because I'm like, I'm you, it's just, whatever your fears are is what you're going to see. And so apparently this is a collective thing that, a lot of people have these fears of reptilians. So then I would turn into that. I've also turned into mermaids, what people don't believe, and it's like, yes, this is all real. This is all anything that you can imagine. Yeah.
Absolutely. That's also what's happening. I think that you explained it perfectly in terms of your reflection. What's happening when somebody enters in the realm. So machined elves, this is a collective geometry. So now you have some expectation that this is a form that you're going to see. So geometry is like, okay, to satisfy the need for familiar, which is where the brain likes to exist. This is why we get caught in loops. I'll show you the machine elves that you've read about. So your brain's like, okay, yeah.
Yeah, got it.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's this. But sometimes it's just energy and it doesn't take any form. And I'm like, that's also really groovy, but I like right now. But I also miss like the multiple headed dancing women, So then when I tell DMT, yeah, but like, can I have the shapes? It's like, sure, honey. And it'll give me back. It's really, really fun.
Yeah, a lot of people think like, oh, the more you smoke DMT, you don't have as many visuals, which is absolutely not true. Yeah, you have them. Sometimes you don't have them. It depends on what you need. I've never seen a molecule that is more intelligent that knows exactly what you need. Psilocybin's right up there with it, but and they're only one molecule away from one another, how they break down. Is that correct?
You know better than I.
Okay. Well, they're both tryptamines that break down into tryptophan, both of them do. So when you're taking a large dose of psilocybin, you're essentially crossing over into the DMT realm.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And that's something that I do sometimes bi-monthly or every few weeks, but monthly, is I'll do a high dose psilocybin journey of like about 10 grams, and then it allows me to stay in that space for longer, because this is why I think psilocybin and DMT work so beautifully together, which is why I do encourage my clients to microdose. And I specifically work with a nurse practitioner that you've had on this podcast.
Mm-hmm.
And I love that, especially if clients are getting off of their antidepressants, and that she'll land them more smoothly with psilocybin, and then I'll come in and we'll rewire the brain on DMT. So I do like those partnerships in terms also in the future of psychedelic therapy in the space.
And speaking about the kind of clients that you work with, what clients would, what is the typical client for you, and who's excluded from that?
So I used to be a little bit more complicated in explaining it, and then I realized that my explanation would come right back into me and clients. Mm-hmm. So it's whoever's ready. Yeah. I have a really wide roster in terms of age, and probably the person that you would expect not to be working with me is a client of mine. Mm-hmm. And it's really, really beautiful. Those that are not ready to take responsibility for themselves and change their lives, we're not going to work together. You can stay exactly where you are and enjoy that. Happy for you. But
and not everybody's ready, and that's fine.
Totally agree.
Yeah.
Oh, good. So, but those are the ones that aren't. They're the ones that don't make it.
and that's okay. At some point, I think everybody's going to get around to realizing that this is the future of everything, because I've healed my own pain with DMT. I have healed other people's pain with DMT, and they've we've collectively done that. Their illnesses. When I had, you remember when I had COVID, and then you were like, oh, okay, do you need this to be real? And you're like, have with your COVID? And I decided, nope, I'm done. And I tested negative that day, and I was like, oh, this is ridiculous. Like, this is really ridiculous. And I still have to play this game with myself at this level of the game. But
I still play this game with myself.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, do I need this to be real? Do I need to be right more than I need to be happy? It's up to me, self. What's the decision? Like, it's all loops. We're all loops. We're in hamster wheels. It's totally fine. But there's nothing wrong with being in a loop. And all you're doing when you like build a new habit is you're creating a more enjoyable loop. Mm-hmm. So we like to be non-player characters sometimes, right? It's okay to just go through the rotation, but just as opposed to some people, they're scared about the loop. Like, what? No, it's all cyclical, guys. Like, we're just experiencing ourselves with ourselves by ourselves forever. Mm-hmm. It's okay to it's okay to be on autopilot sometimes. However, just check in if you enjoy the loop. Like, I have, I also have a 3-dimensional existence, right? Mm-hmm. I love painting. I have a loop where I see my clients. I guess it's not that normal because I'm smoking DMT so many times a week, but that's a pattern. I see my clients every week. I take my dogs out. I paint. I clean. I have that, but I love my loop. Like, I really love me too. That's all it is. Check in with yourself. Do you like your loop? If you're not enjoying your loop, change your loop. But first, take responsibility for why your loop is perfect, because it's what you've created.
Absolutely. That's a powerful thing to say. We also both work with Changa. Can you explain the difference between Changa and DMT for most people who have never heard of Changa before?
I really don't think that they're that different.
We would
It is-
disagree. We will disagree.
we can totally disagree. So DMT trained me. I was trained by DMT, and I'm based in Brazil, so I'm working with Changa here. Changa, it definitely allows me to be in the space for a longer period of time. It's a different. You're smoking it. I like that DMT can be vaped. I think that if it's done correctly, it's a very efficient mechanism of action. I don't know how to say that sciencey. It's a good way to get it. And Changa does have some more history. The herbs all have power. So you're putting DMT on specific herbs, and whatever blend you're smoking, I believe that their energy also enters into it.
Yep.
However, you treat the two of them very differently. So you share your perspective.
Changa for me is a more ceremonial aspect when I work with DMT. It's still a ritual, so I do this ritual with clients. I always make sure my space is energetically clean, but with Changa, it's a different thing. I open sacred space. My shamanic practices come into there, and I treat it like very, very much like a sacred ceremony. And Changa for me is more like a freight train leaving the building and like buckle up. But DMT can be like that too. But with Changa, there's no question about it. It's like train is leaving the building. Even ayahuasca is like a slow descent in. This is like, so for me,
so every time you sit with Changa, it takes you.
100%, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, like I leave my body.
This is like a little secret weapon that you've given yourself. Like when you really want to go, you're like, fuck this, like medium ground shit. Like let's dissolve my identity. That's when you hit your Changa. I like that.
Yeah, and I mean it's when I'm having a really rough like week. That's what I do. It's like, okay, I'm out, and then I like I deconstruct my reality so that I realize that I'm doing this to myself, and I'm able to take more responsibility for it.
And then you come back cleaner, and you're like,
oh, 100%.
Yeah.
But I've had a lot of clients tell me that even those who have done ayahuasca, that Changa is more intense than ayahuasca. That they have there's never felt anything more like a rocket ship to the moon. And the first time, this is kind of a funny story, I did Changa. One of my friends' name, who's a shaman, was facilitating for me, and I don't get scared very easily, but I was like, make it stop. I was going in a continuous loop, and I was terrified. And then I heard this voice say, surrender. And I was like, okay, I faked a surrender. And it was like, no, you actually have to surrender. And then I laughed. And then I was like, okay, I got it. And I actually surrendered. And then it was beautiful. But that was my first experience with Changa. And then
what did you learn? Do you remember what the lesson was?
What the
lesson?
No, actually, it was teaching me about how everything is self. But I didn't and that's why I said I knew it, and then I started to begin to understand it and understand it. But that was the beginning of it, and it was also that introduction. I was told by this person that was this old woman that I know was me, say, you're going to serve this medicine. I was like, oh no, the hell I'm not. Like, oh no, I'm not. I was like, no way. But like after I think it was like 6-8 months, just working with it, I was like, oh, crap. I have to
okay. So yeah, there's no ifs or ands or buts about this. Like I'm gonna be doing it, but I'll make little agreements with DMT. It's because my privacy is my most important virtue. Like I don't do any advertising. I'm pretty selective. Like I lived without a phone for a year and a half, and I really like my little bubble that I've created. And so I'll make agreements with DMT about like, hey, like we've got some stuff to do. And I'm like, fine. That being said, I'm prettier. The more important I've become, the prettier I am, the more money I have, the healthier boundaries I embody. Like, I choose pleasure. So if I am going to become a force in this, like if this is really what we're doing, then it's going to be fucking fun for me too. There's
Absolutely.
not, we don't have to have a consequence for doing a good job or being called for this work.
Yeah, and DMT is people don't understand. They always think that like medicine work has to be this tough thing. Some of it is, mind you, it's not for the faint-hearted, but it's also really satisfying and amazing, pleasurable work.
It's we forget that we recreate ourselves recreationally, right? So recreation is recreation in and of itself, and again, it's permission for pleasure. Part of this comes from colonization. This is this matrix that we built for ourselves. Okay, so like all the governments that are doing what they're doing, it's us guys playing the role that we've created them to play. So once we stop blaming the other for behaving badly, then we can take a look at what this character that we've created, how they're doing such a good job of doing what we've created them to do, and then we can collectively change the code. And so a big part of doing that is permission for pleasure. And when we give ourselves permission for pleasure, then we don't have all of this pain around us telling us that your behavior is not okay. Look at the consequences of it. Instead, it's like, look how nice your behavior is, and look at how great everybody feels because of it. Yay! It's a higher frequency. The female orgasm actually vibrates at the frequency of creation. So this is a big part of my journey. On a micro level, the character that I play, I was raised by my very conservative Christian grandparents, and they're incredible. However, there was some shame around my sexuality and my beauty that's been passed down generationally. So what I'm really doing is doing sacral work as well, and realizing that there's no shame in sexuality. That's how we create the next level of ourselves, and it's really a valuable part of partnership. So I see this dance between couples, and I also have lived it, where there's sex becomes weaponized in the relationship, and then they drift when things are wrong. You'll drift further and further apart, and then you take sex out of the equation, and both of you are like, "Why the fuck am I here?" And so sex really is a great healer in things, in addition to conversation. And DMT really did teach me that. It was like, you want him to behave better? Have sex with him. Not until he washes the dishes. You want him to wash the dishes? Let him give you an orgasm. Then he'll wash the dishes too. And I'm like, no. So it's the games that we play with ourselves.
100%. It's hilarious. And a lot as women, we don't realize that we do this to the men in our lives, and we make it worse. And we wonder why, like, oh, we created them to go cheat on us and things like that. Because
it's true. It's true. I know there's probably some women listening to this podcast that are like, fuck you. I've been cheated on.
I've been cheated on. My ex-husband cheated on me and lived. Yeah. So yeah.
I know.
Been there. Yeah. But you know, I also had to take accountability for the part that I played in that. And
yeah. I put on a chastity belt like a year and a half into a relationship. Like, I was like, no,
that's what's gonna happen. Oh my God, that's so funny. And like, what did we expect was gonna happen? I mean,
oh my God. Yeah, no, I did that to myself. But I learned a valuable lesson, and it's one that I'm still learning. And ultimately, it's for me to also enjoy my sexuality and not punish myself for being beautiful. Okay, so back to, geez, I mean, that was a big loop, because this is something that I'm working on personally. It's like cleaning the sacred house of my pussy. Really am working through, I'm pretty transcendent in terms of all up here. I am quite mechanical. But I've realized the next level of my reality is a part of not weaponizing my sexuality against me, and like really transcending any of my identity or my value as a woman having a small number or withholding or being a certain kind of a way. So that's what I'm working on in a micro level. But in a macro level, we have a lot in the psychedelic community because it's unregulated and all that shit. And because this work is so transformative, people are like, wow, I've done more work in such a short period of time than I've done in all my years of therapy, and now I'm healed, even though they just pulled like the first, and then they go out and they facilitate it. Also, that's us doing exactly what we're created to do. But the thing is somebody can only take you as far as they are.
Yep.
So it is important that you have experts that really, 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 really do know this space. And I personally think that the best teacher is the plant.
I agree. That's how, when I started doing psilocybin ceremonies for people, it was only because I was doing them in my closet after my divorce for, like the period, it was like a good year long, like constantly one after another. And psilocybin taught me how to, and then when I started fixing myself, people were like, oh my gosh, what are you doing? Like, you've completely changed. And I'm like, oh, psilocybin. And they're like, oh, can you do that for me? So it was a very organic thing. It wasn't like, oh, I want to become the facilitator. It wasn't like that at all. It was just I had already started my company, Psychic Babes, and I was doing that. And then I sort of realized now, like, oh, I see how I set myself up for this.
I see what I was doing there.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, you think you're clever. But
there's this thing that I would say that it's unnecessarily complicated, but it's like you never know how much you know until you know you knew it.
yeah. Yep. Yeah. And it's funny.
Or hindsight's 2020. Or it's that. Hindsight's 2020.
What do you think? What's your end goal, like with DMT? Like what do you envision? And I already know the answer to this, so I love it, but
I mean, I don't have an end goal, and I think that I can only see as much as I three-dimensionally can digest without
your vision, not end goal, but your vision for the.
Oh, it's a multi-billion-dollar empire, guys.
Mm-hmm. I agree. I 100% agree.
Yeah. It's huge. It's the future. It's the fucking future. Specifically because so it's your higher consciousness. At first, it works on you and shows you, like, honey, this is what you're doing to yourself. But then it gives you permission to work with it. So, for example, I have a absolutely stunning 6-bedroom condo on the top of Sao Paulo that I created a reality that it was so architecturally delicious that the walls I envisioned already existed. Like, I'm talking, I've got arched hallways, I've got columns, I've got conversation pit. You can see I've got a built-in bar with like crocodile leather. It's stunning. But I use DMT to design. So I actually can move furniture around before I physically move furniture around. So I'm like, oh, do I want this here? Do I want this here? I'll smoke some DMT and it'll allow me to play with it. It'll allow me to play with, if I'm doing a gallery wall, I can get to see what different paintings go where before I actually take nail to paint.
And to understand the energy of what you're working with. Is this masculine, feminine? Is this what spells have you cast into your paintings? And yeah, that was one of the biggest things you showed me too at the beginning of our work, was like, oh, because you saw that I painted, you're like, okay, I want you to sit down and see the spells you cast into paintings. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is one is I am, and this one is I am not. Oh my God, like, wow, it was just very, very profound. Yeah.
It's powerful to see what you're doing without knowing that you're doing it. And so DMT also brings conscious awareness to your subconscious expression of delight, or sometimes it's a call for help. Like, it really showed me the messages that when I was in a point of my life when I was not in the happiest of relationships. It was an incredible lesson. I mean, like, I'm super, super grateful for my ex. I learned so much about myself. And it was very concise. It was gorgeous until it wasn't, and then it ended. But I could see basically the information that I was giving me and in the art that I was doing. And DMT was like, honey, you're not happy. Look at what you're painting. I was like, oh, you know what? You're right. I don't think that I am. I'm not sure I'm enjoying this loop anymore. But in addition, for example, I work with music producers. I work with creatives. I work with traders. And
doctors, nurses.
Yeah. it's so it hi Lula. It it makes you really good at what you do, especially if it's your zone of genius, especially if it's what we've collectively created the character of you to do. If you're on this journey of self-actualization, it's going to make you so fucking good at your job. Also, if you're not on your life's path,
it's gonna rip you out of it, put you onto it.
Yeah.
I have 2 clients going through that right now. They're like, oh, I thought
Yeah.
I was gonna do this, but I realized I wasn't happy, and like,
Yeah.
part of it.
That's the other thing. You gotta be ready to embrace change because your whole life moves.
Oh, yeah. If it's not for your highest good, it's going, whether you like it or not. It's like, no. And the universe
Well
has a sense of humor. It really does. Like, it really does have a sense of humor in the way that it delivers things. But yeah.
it's the one Joe Rogan talks about the jokers flipping him off. And
Yeah. Fuck
I've got
you.
you, fuck you. DMT has flipped me off so many times. It's like
Oh, remember when I told you I got in an argument with DMT and you're like, did you get in an argument with DMT? And I was like, yes, I'm sorry, but I did. I was like, DMT was throwing up all these demons and stuff. And I was like, oh, okay, but answer the question. I was
it's you are absolutely allowed to argue with it. It's you, and you can get in arguments with yourself. And it's actually a really funny way to overcome fear, because I remember one argument I was having, and it was actually when Jen and I were in Mexico together, and there was this big hurricane, and I was just irritated. And I was like, I just wanted to be irritated. And I'm smoking some DMT, and DMT's throwing like these like demonic forces at me, like, are you scared? I was like, no, you're irritating me too. Stop. And things that would have been my biggest fears realized have no power over me anymore.
Yeah.
So that's also how we conquer fear, because then we get to play with it and we realize it's us. And then no part of our psyche gets to hide. And that's how demons are formed. It's a piece of you that it grows in the darkness. It's not given permission or accepted by yourself. So it starts to form its own self.
Your shadow, if you ignore it long enough and you, oh, no, be quiet. You put that little kid in the corner kind of thing, like, shush, 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 shush. At some point, it's going to start misbehaving, and it's going to be in inappropriate ways. So if you don't nurture your shadow, like I let my shadow come out and dance or paint or whatever, and trust me, some weird fucking artwork comes out as a result. The weird demonic stuff that's like, woo, okay. But I have to let my shadow dance like that, So
for sure.
And if everybody doesn't let their shadow, and a lot of people don't, they have this misconception, oh, people are going to think I'm weird if that's like, hey, we're all weird. We're all weird. We all have demons in our closets. Like, we all have things that we're skeletons that we're embarrassed about. We all have weird thoughts that we're embarrassed about. It's okay. It's all right.
Oh, we're all so
I heard it all.
Weird is actually quite normal. And that's one of this is what I really like, what I'm seeing in society, is permission to be yourself. This like unapologetic self. And I'm loving that I'm seeing that because it's true. And it also gives us permission to create ourselves better. Like, okay, self, this is the reflection of ourselves that you created. This is the character that I'm playing. I'm loving this. I'm loving this. I'm dropped.
Or I'm a hot mess. Let's.
I'm like really fucking sad. So can we create we better? So if we are more transparent about what our collective creation looks like, then we can all go as a one organism that we are, go into code mode together and like give. And this is honestly why permission for pleasure is so fucking important. If we have permission for pleasure, sex workers will not have these terrible things. If we have permission to use things, we won't be the planet won't be destroyed because of it, right? Like, oh my gosh, there's permission to enjoy our beauty. Like, are you kidding? You know how much happier people are how many beautiful people, I was one of them as well, where I was so adamant on not enjoying being beautiful that I developed dermatillomania. So I would only look at my reflection to destroy my skin. And I would obsessively pick at my face and then create problems. That was a painful loop because I was uncomfortable being beautiful because I didn't give myself permission for pleasure. DMT cured that. And
Wow.
part of it doing that was like, honey, you need to be ugly. Okay, here we go.
Yeah.
And I was ugly, but sometimes that's what I needed to satisfy in myself. And then it allowed me to enjoy being beautiful, and then ultimately allowed me to neutralize the process where I am super stoked about the machine that I've given myself, but I don't think too much of it, and I get to enjoy both experiences of it. So I give myself permission to be gross and not feel bad about it, and also give myself permission to be drop dead gorgeous and enjoy that too. So when we can be more transparent about what it feels like to be ourselves, and also when we get really comfortable into our shadow, it allows us to neutralize our identity. So as opposed to, I can just be like I am, and then when I can be, this is why they talk about the power of presence, then I can be more selective on what the next expression of me is. So I am what I am experiencing myself. How I'm choosing to experience myself is no longer a necessity, it's a choice. So I am. And if I have gone into my shadow, that part of myself, and also my light, if I've become the queen of my darkness, then I can play in both realms without having one fighting for attention and ultimately controlling me.
Yeah, and as you like to say, if you're plunged into hell, become the queen of hell.
Oh my gosh, yeah. Queen of your darkness. And then
Yeah.
it's fun. Then you're like, ooh.
Yeah. And it's like, even I know you have a client that's schizophrenic, so do I. That's so a lot of these people that people won't touch and they want to like lock away, a lot of these people are having transformative results from working with DMT. I just actually listened to a study where they are extracting urine and doing urine therapy with people with schizophrenia with DMT. They're extracting their urine and then they're giving them urine therapy, and it's they're bit like their hallucinations are calming down, which I actually have a different philosophy. I don't think they're hallucinations at all. I think they're actually tapped into the collective, but they're just hearing it all at once, so they don't know, they can't make sense of it.
Like they're always in different dials, like
yes, yep, like the radio is constantly so they're getting all these different signals and it's overwhelming.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm. And so shamans in shamanic culture, they bring them into society and they hold them up on a pedestal like, oh, you have these amazing gifts. Let's teach you how to work with them now. And then they don't have any more problems. Instead, here we lock them away and, oh, no, go, you don't know anything. So I think it's quite fascinating that we're getting to a space where we can embrace these types of things. And also, because 10 years ago, 5 years ago, even psychedelics with somebody who had schizophrenia would be absolutely out of the question.
Right. So it's and there also is that it can teeter you, but that's
why that's why you have to have somebody who's a medical professional, licensed professional, which we both do.
You have to have
clear somebody.
What's a fucking gangster? Like if you have a piece of yourself that there's a darkness that's pretty intense, that's when you need to find somebody like us. Okay. Yep. If you're like, oh, I want to trip on mushrooms for the first time and I think that it'll be nice, you can have somebody that's less equipped, that's more, you can also be your own, you can do it, be your own guide. I think that's important that you're honest with yourself about what you seek and how comfortable you are in experiencing these different aspects of your being, and then you can make an educated go.
And how equipped you are to deal with somebody else's fear when it comes up in that space.
Yeah. Absolutely. And that's something that I also see is like these people, they're like, I'm exercising demons and I'm like, and all of this. And I'm like, man, imagine how somebody's going to feel if you're like, what? Everything is exactly as it's meant to be. And I support everybody doing exactly what they're meant to do. And it couldn't be any other way. So I'm going to move on from that.
No, but yeah, I hear what you're saying. But once upon a time, this was part of my journey as well. Before I realized, that was the other thing that I was going to mention. Changa told me about neutrality, and that was planted in me, like when literally that seed was planted when I did Changa for the first time. It was like, you are not going to be able to do anything to, like if somebody's got dense energy in them, you have to be neutral about it. You can't go in there trying to pull out demons. And I was like, oh, and since then, like my work's changed. Now, mind you, I do have people that contact me like, I have this demon inside me. And it's like, okay, instead of going through the rigmarole of explaining what that is, it's like, I kind of just work with them to
I know
understand
what
that
you do.
isn't,
I don't know.
yeah, there's an aspect of self here. So yeah, but that wasn't always the case. So I do understand, because I was programmed so heavily with Catholic guilt that, like, oh, demons, the devil. And it's like, now it's hysterical, like, that I ever bought, like, oh my gosh, what did I do? But it's that Catholic guilt. They're pretty good at it, dude.
I mean, well, we're pretty good at we did a very good job.
Yes. Yeah, we are very good.
This aspect of yourself, because if you do, eternal damnation awaits you. Like,
Yeah.
that's fucked up.
Yeah, I
I
mean,
get
it's
it.
pretty smart, but yeah, it's fucked up.
Yeah, we really did a good job with that one. But also, that's something that DMT has taught me about religions, is they're all saying, science included, we're all saying the same thing, just different enough that we can argue about it. But if you, instead of like, you're wrong and I'm right because these puzzle pieces don't align, it's drawing the circle around the circle. It's transcending polarity. It's like, you picture a circle, you put a line through it. The circle's the womb, that's femininity. The line through it, that's the dick, that's masculinity, that's the penetrative energy. And that creates me and you, but it's us. So to be able to transcend my perspective, walk across the street, then see that they're both me experiencing myself in a different way. And of course, that the opposition is what allows experience. So when we stop punishing people for their individuality and appreciating that they are polarizing us, allowing us to be like, I can only be me because I end and you begin.
Yes.
And then we get to enjoy more the texture that we've created, or the maze that we're traveling through ourselves. So
one of my favorite, sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
One of my favorite exercises that I teach to clients that you taught me was, I'm not real, I'm thought form, when you go in with DMT. And if you believe it enough, if you have deconstructed your reality to such a point, you will literally fractal away into nothing in front of somebody's eyes who has smoked DMT with you. And it sounds crazy, but 100% it works. If the person that you're smoking with has deconstructed their reality enough and they believe it when they're saying it, they will fractal away and essentially disappear. And then you start saying, I'm real, and then you start to coagulate back together.
It's fun.
That was probably the exercise that I was like, okay, this is actually, like, there's no hallucination that can make that same thing happen every time that way. And it was very profound for me. And that, that's one that I always do with my clients in the beginning, because it's like, it's a very powerful thing to.
You just at the beginning?
Not in the beginning, but like in the first 5 sessions. Yeah, I usually do that so that they understand this reality.
I see you. I like that. It's like your new party trick. You're like, no,
but it's just, I mean, it depends on where they come in at. But a lot of times people don't really, they're having a trouble believing in their own power. And so I want them to understand this isn't real, and you've created yourself to believe that you don't have this power. So watch, now you can make the power, you can make yourself this way. Oh, you do have the power. And they're like, oh my God, I do.
Absolutely. It's like, I won't believe it till I see it. Okay,
absolutely. And there's a lot of people that operate like that. I used to be one of them, but then when I saw it, I was like, oh, okay. I get it now.
Absolutely.
100%. Okay, this is kind of the question that I ask all of my guests, but what is your hope for humanity? And how can we help the possibility for change with this work?
I think the most effective way to change the world is realize that it's exactly fine as it is. Okay. So, and just enjoy and be present into why it is the way that it is, and stop trying to fucking make it different. Because what we're doing is we're creating problems to solve. And again, we keep talking about polarity. So if I need to be the good guy, I'm creating a villain to reflect my goodness, guys. So those with this hero backpack, you're creating problems to solve so you can be important. It's that. So all of us that think we're doing good, we're actually creating something to mirror our goodness back to us through badness.
Because
So
we need to be good. We need to have that. That was a tough lesson for me to learn too.
yeah, you don't have to
I
be
had a savior
perfect.
complex. So, it was like, oh, once I had to address that and that was shoved in my face, then I was like, oh, okay, all right. So instead, just work on me and do what I love doing. I get to affect people in a healthy and positive way. It's just a byproduct of what I'm doing, but I'm enjoying my loop.
Absolutely. So it's like we're drops in an ocean, and this is so the brain, it's like it's a bad use of energy for the brain to be wrong. The brain's like, this isn't working for me. So the brain likes to be right, which is why we live in a collectively created perception of reality, and you see what you believe. It's the red car effect. And if you want to be just beaten down by all the problems, that's what algorithms really do. They copy how the brain works. They give us what we need to see to reaffirm our beliefs so we can continue to be correct. This is the importance of gratitude. When you shift your perception, then you shift your reality. When you choose to be grateful, then you have all of this evidence that's like, I am full of greatness. When you want to be pissed, you're going to find a lot of problems. And we specifically, if
You want to be sick, you're going to wake up sick every day,
Yeah, you want to be sick, if that's what makes you real, okay, here's a lot of things to make you sick. And these phones, we tune so macro into all of these problems that we can't solve, and then we just get like really disheartened about it because the world is such a sad place. But the world is also a really beautiful place. Every day neutralizes itself through life, through death, through happy, through sad, through love found, through love lost. So we are Earth expressing herself, and this goes back to the basic geometry of spheres or self-actualized objects. And as we become more are you agreeing? Is it time for mommy? Is mommy getting long-winded? Is that what's happening? Basically, yeah, we have a tendency to do that, don't we? So basically, my hope for the world is that we just enjoy that we're exactly as we're meant to be, and we couldn't be any other way.
I love that. Nature figures itself out. It's way better at doing that than we could ever hope to do. We screw it up. So we leave that to its own, and just worry about yourself. Pick up trash. Don't make more messes, but leave.
Sure.
We are. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Just worry about doing you the way that is best for you. Everything else, and you had to teach this to me. You had to hammer it. Oh, everything else is going to be just fine the way that it is. But the more just focus on doing you. And she was right, 100%.
Well, because, and I could see this because I also walked this path personally. And I was distracting myself from the next level of myself by fueling my day with solving other people's problems. And it was fun, and I felt really accomplished. And it was also keeping me from the next level of my evolution. And it was also keeping them dependent on me. So it was allowing me to be important and then not empowering people to solve their own problems.
Wow.
So yeah, when you mow your own yard, everybody around you, because it's all a reflection of you. So when you give yourself permission to be okay and you clean up your own inward shit, they say the answers are within. Yes, everything outside is
everything else will reflect. It's so funny. The moment you start to, it just everybody will mirror you, and that is so true. The moment I just, when I focus on doing my own stuff, everything around me starts to fall in line. It's like, oh, whoa. But, it took me, I don't want to say how old I am, but it took me 30 some years to figure this out. It really did.
You're a thought form.
Exactly. So my age is none of my business. Anyway. Well, I am so blessed and so thankful that you came on my podcast to talk about this. This is the most exciting episode I've ever done, because this is my life's work and your life's work, and I'm so passionate about it, and I believe in it so wholeheartedly. And nobody is doing work like this right now with DMT, and this is the future of change, and I know it. I feel it. I just know it in my bones. And so I'm really excited for people to hear this level of work that's being done. And yeah, I'm just excited to keep to keep creating with you. I mean, it's already been an amazing ride. So I know like sky's the limit.
Oh my gosh, and then some. This is just the beginning. Well, I'm really honored to be here. I love you truly. I'm proud of you. And I'm so grateful that we're walking this path together, my sister. And
Absolutely.
yeah, dude, it's just getting groovier and groovier. So looking forward to the next episode.
Me too. All right, guys. Thanks again. We'll see you next time.